Alright, hello people from the internet, hello everyone, good morning, good afternoon, good evening. It's me, Nine Settler here with another spell overview. This time we're doing summonings. So before I begin, two things. The first one is that I opened a Patreon in case you want to contribute like that. It really does help a lot for me to continue to stream and to do this. Um, yeah, it would really help a lot. That's the first thing. The second one is that you should probably speed up the video. The link for the Patreon is going to be in the description of the video. There's also, the link to my Twitch and stuff if you want to contribute by subscribing there or so. Um, Whatever you want to do. Anyway, Summonings deals with summoning creatures from another plane of reality to temporarily aid you. Increasing Summoning's skill may grant a number of effects depending on the spell, such as longer duration or more powerful allies. Note that summoned beings do not leave corpses and give no experience when killed, and their equipment is as ephemeral as they are. And you know the rest. The rest is in all schools. So yeah, summons. Yeah, pretty self-explanatory. You cast the spells and you get dudes, and the dudes theoretically help you kill things or prevent you from dying to things by distracting them. I do not like this school that much, but it has a couple of spells, mostly the high level ones, that I really, really like. And so I am going to talk about this school now. Recently, I've played some more summonings because of the necromancy changes. Like necromancy and summonings, they're similar but they're different. So I was playing a bit of summonings as well when I was playing those necromancy characters. Um, and yeah, I have some fresh memories of what I'm about to talk about, so I think it's gonna be a good video. Anyway, the first spell in our list is going to be hold on, spell. It's gonna be summons Mammal. It summons a rat, a bat, or a quokka to the caster's aid. Spell power increases the chances of summoning a quokka. So the only thing that's truly good from this spell is a quokka. The spell is very, like the description of the spell is very short. You don't really need to look too deep into this spell. It does exactly what it says on the label, summons those things, and those things may or may not be helpful to what you're doing. However, this is a level 1 spell, and it's a spell that summoner starts the game with. I think Wizard also gets it, but I'm not sure. I don't really like playing Wizards, so I don't know that. With regard, oh no, they don't get it. They don't get it. They do get a summon, but they don't get this summon. Um, it's an okay summon to be replaced with a better summon as soon as you have access to it, of course. The Quokka is the best thing that you can get, and it kind of falls off real quick. And the bat and the rat, yeah, they don't really do a lot. The bat can serve as a meat shield because it is very highly evasive. Monsters can have a very difficult time hitting the bat. But yeah, if you want to kill things, the Quokka is what you want to see. So yeah, that's it for Summon Small Mammal. Not much else to say about it. Next on our list we have Golem. We have Golem. Golem calls forth a minor demon from the pits of hell. The demon will fight alongside the caster for a time depending on spell power. So you can get Crimson Imp, White Imp, Shadow Imp, Iron Imp, and I think that's it. Those are the 4 imps that exist in the game. The one that you really want to see is, in my opinion, the Iron Imp, because it's almost unkillable by the point in the game where you're gonna be wanting to cast this. The issue that I have with this spell is that you never want to cast it. Period. You never want to cast it. It's a really bad spell in my opinion because Crimson Imps are a really bad ally to have. Their blinking ability will make it so that they don't fulfill the purpose that you summon them for, which is kill things and prevent you from dying. So I don't memorize this whenever I have to play a summoner. I straight up pretend that this spell doesn't exist. I truly despise this spell because I truly despise Crimson Imps as allies. They're really, really bad. But yeah, if in a hypothetical world you were to not get Crimson Imps, if Crimson Imps were removed from this spell would be very strong. But Crimson Imps ruin the whole thing. The possibility of getting a Crimson Imp makes it so that this spell is not worth 2 mana. That's just my opinion. I do have to say that I'm also negatively biased against summons. They are really not part of my favorite playstyle in this game, which is point at monster and then say some funny words, and then the monster explodes in fire. That's what I like to do when I play Crawl, and the spells that I like are spells that let me do that. Summons almost never let me do that kind of thing. So yeah, keep that in mind when listening to this video. Next on our list we have Summon Doggy. Yeah, Summon Doggy. Summons a solitary canine to the caster's aid. Spell power increases the chances of summoning a stronger breed. Something important that I haven't really been mentioning when it comes to these is that they have spell caps. I think all the spells that we have seen so far have a cap of 1, so nothing too complicated. No, we are not getting too fancy here yet. This spell is nice. This is actually one, like when I play Summoner or when I start with a Summoner book for one reason or another, I get Small Mammal and then I just skip Call Imp for Summon Canine Familiar. I think this spell is pretty good. The doggies that you summon seem visible, all of them. You can get hounds, you can get wolves, and you can get wargs. The wargs are the strongest, of course, and the wargs are also poison resistant. Mm, so yeah, it can be a pretty okay spell. Um, it definitely serves to carry you to a better spell. It actually kills things. The doggies don't run away like imps do. The doggies are fast. It's a pretty fantastic spell. I like this one. Much more comfortable to use compared to Golem. Golem sucks. Yeah. I think Golem sucks so bad that it's gonna make all the other starting spells look better by comparison. But yeah, not much else to say about Summon Doggy. It is good for early invisible monsters like Sigmund, I guess, or Wizards. You could try to use it against unseen horrors, but it's probably not gonna go very well. If you get an unseen horror early enough that you have to use this, it's probably going to kill you before the doggy manages to kill it. But it's still an okay thing to try to not die. So sure, just don't just give up if you get an early unseen horror. If you have this spell, that is, or a spell that hits the unseen horror. But I'm kind of deviating a bit. I guess those are the uses for Summon Doggy. So yeah, next on our list we have we have Guardian Golem. Summon Guardian Golem summons a protective golem. It redirects the injuries of its allies but not the caster to itself. When sufficiently damaged, it may fill with an inner flame, causing it to explode if destroyed. It gains more health at high power. I think this spell is pretty good. This spell is fantastic when you're playing Hep, because it protects the Hep ancestor. It could also protect, well, it protects all allies. So it doesn't limit itself to summons. So if you happen to have, I don't know, well, necromantic allies or a Hep ally or something weird, godly summons as well, like angels, well, berserkers no, because you cannot cast this when you have berserkers from Trog. But you know what I'm talking about. Like any kind of ally, this will protect it and extend its duration. I think it's pretty good if you're going for an ally build. If you're a Hep worshipper, I think that it's not so great on its own. There's some people that really like it because of the inner flame effect, but I think it's somewhat unreliable and potentially dangerous. In fact, I prefer to do the opposite, which of letting it explode with the inner flame. I would rather just recast it when it gets affected by the inner flame. But it's just a different application to the spell. Yeah, like I am actually using it to protect my allies instead of making it deal damage to the enemy. But you can also use it to deal damage to the enemy. Yeah. Interesting spell. It's not my favorite, but then again, I also don't like ally builds. So there's that. But I have used it in the past, and I have not really been dissatisfied with it. It's okay. I wish I could say the same about the next one, however, because the next one is Summon Lightning Spire. That's the next one. Summon Lightning Spire. Constructs a lightning spire in a nearby location that you cannot choose. It can fire bouncing bolts of electricity at the caster's foes, but is completely immobile. The strength of a spire depends on spell power. This spell is praised by people in the community. I do not like it. I didn't like it back when you could target it, and I definitely do not like it now that you cannot target it anymore. It's very difficult to use. Or, well, it's not that difficult to use, but it's potentially harmful to use. Like, you can cast it, and it can block your path. Um, yeah, it's pretty rough. I definitely do not like Lightning Spire. There's sometimes situations where you just place it and it lands in the exact style that you would like it not to land because it doesn't see the enemy or it blocks your path or something, right? The fact that you cannot control where it lands, in my opinion, is a pretty lame change to a spell that I didn't even like that much before that change. So this is another spell that I do not like to use. Whenever possible, I try to stay away from this one. So pretty much that means that whenever I'm playing a summoner, I get small Mammal and summon Doggy, and that's it. I just wait to get a real spell like Stone Arrow or something like that, or one of the higher level summons, because those ones are pretty okay compared to the lower level ones. But yeah, I know, I'm fully aware that this is a very controversial opinion. So I wouldn't be surprised if you just came to the comments to be in complete opposition to what I have to say about Lightning Spire, but it's just a spell that straight up doesn't suit my playstyle, so I cannot really talk very favorably about it. If you are like me and you like to blow things up by pointing at them and saying funny words, you're probably not gonna like this spell. Next on our list we have Ice Beast. Summon Ice Beast calls forth a beast of ice to serve the caster. The strength of the beast depends on spell power. None of the spells that I've mentioned, you can summon more than one creature, so don't worry about that. I've been forgetting about it, but none of the spells that I've mentioned can summon more than one. Anyway, Summon Ice Beast is a pretty okay spell. Actually, I think small Mammal can summon like 2 or 3, but it doesn't really matter. It's a small Mammal. You're not gonna use that past like D2 or D3. Um, anyway, going back to Ice Beast, it can be strong. But it's a spell that once again I really have not used a lot. I didn't get this when Ice Elementalist used to start with it. I didn't get it when Summoner used to start with it. I find it a bit funny that neither Summoner nor Ice Elementalist gets this spell anymore. I'm pretty sure they don't. Do they? Let me find out. I guess we're doing it live. Give me just a second. Let me open my local version of Crawl because this is in a server. Yeah. Thank you for your patience, everyone. I need to download a new build of Crawl. This doesn't seem to be working. Ah, well. We're gonna assume that Summoner Start doesn't get this, because I would have learned it if it got it. This got nerfed into you being able to summon only one back in the day, you used to be able to summon like 3 of these, but there were severe changes to summoning in a recent version. I don't know if it was 0.27 or 0.28. I don't really remember exactly which one of those two it was, but it was made so that summons gave you 100% of the experience, as opposed to 50% as they did before. It was actually bottoming at 50 and like scaling up with the amount of damage that you yourself dealt to the monster that the summon killed. But it was not 100% as it is now. So I would say that now summons are in a much better shape overall. Um, just because it's actually like not horrible to start a summoner and not get any experience over the things that your small mammal skill. But anyway, when it comes to Ice Beast, it can be pretty strong. Yeah, it can be a pretty strong spell. I think this one scales a lot if you can tank for it, because it deals a lot of damage, but it's not the paragon of tankiness. It's also like weak to fire. Um, so yeah, if you can tank for this, it can deal some insane damage. Um, the strength of the beast depends on spell power, means that the hit dice of the monster like scales up. So the cold damage and the HP of the ice beast scale up with the amount of spell power that you have. It can be pretty noticeable casting it when you can barely cast it with like a ring of wizardry, and casting it with like 100% power. You will notice a very vast difference in quality of Ice Beast. So it's not just like a random Ice Beast that you find in the dungeon normally. It's scaled up quite a lot actually. And the same is true for some of these other spells. Like when it says the strength of the beast depends on, or when it says something about the strength of the summon scaling with spell power, that's pretty good because you're gonna get higher quality monsters whenever a line like this is in the spell. But anyway, next on our list we have Summon Forest. Ooh, Summon Forest. Some forest forcefully intersects a forested plane with this world, requires open space to succeed. While the spell holds, a spirit of the forest will be called forth, and the trees of the forest will be awakened to deal damage to nearby enemies. The spell power increases the duration, size, and thickness of the intersected plane, as well as the strength of the spirit. This is a level 5 summoning translocation spell. You can only cast it once, or like you can only cast it you cannot cast it multiple times. It doesn't even get you this line. Um, this spell sucks in my opinion. I hate this spell. This spell is one of my most hated spells in the entirety of the game. Sorry. Um, and I am about to tell you why I hate this spell. You summon the forest, right? And then you get a dryad and a bunch of trees. And what's gonna happen is that the dryad will try its hardest to die while you have the spell up. Like the dryad's mission in life is to die. That's just how it is when you cast this spell. And what happens when the dryad dies? You cannot recast the spell because it needs to time out so you can't do it again. That makes me absolutely despise the spell. If either the Dryad didn't just actively try to die every time you cast a spell, or you could just recast it once the Dryad died, this would be so much better because the Dryad effects are actually really strong. Like the Dryad has Awaken Forest, and it also has a spell that summons like a bind from a tree. So the bind just grabs monsters and pulls them towards the trees, and the trees just smack them because they're awakened. That's really strong. The issue is that you never get to that because the Dryad likes to die. So it's very frustrating to me that this spell exists like this, and that you have to rely on the Dryad. That's the worst part. That's the reason why I don't use this spell, because it sounds cool, but in practice, you're not gonna get any of the cool things because the Dryad is just gonna die. It's so frustrating. And like, yeah, I've given up on trying to use this spell. I've tried a fair amount of times. I play a lot of Jin. I have gotten some Forest a fair amount of times. It never works. So yeah, that's it for me and Summon Forest. If you like it, Power to you, but I do not like it. Oh no, I do not like it. I think a trend with the summons that I do not like is that you kind of have to tank for them. If the summons can tank for you and they deal damage, those are the summons that I like the most. We're about to start seeing some of those. But next on our list we have Mana Viper. Yeah, Mana Viper. Mana Viper summons a violet scaled serpent whose bite can swiftly drain the magical reserves of nearly any foe. At higher power, the anti-magic properties of the Viper's bite grow even stronger. This spell is pretty okay. Once again, this is one of the ones that you have to tank for, but this one gets a pass from me because by the time that you're gonna be using Mana Viper, it's like much later in the game than with some of the other summon spells because it achieves a greater level of utility once you start seeing the really messed up spellcasters such as Liches and Annihilators and Demonologists and Sorcerers and Orbs of Fire. All of those things can potentially get hosed super hard by the anti-magic bite of the Mana Viper, and you just have to protect the Mana Viper a bit. It used to be that you could summon like 3 of these at the same time as well. Once again, that got changed to only 1 when the rework to summons happened a couple of versions ago. It is completely fine. It is still a very strong spell, and I like it. It also deals some pretty decent damage. The Mana Viper is fast. It doesn't poison, but it does the thing that you just read. And I think the Mana Viper is also not poison resistant itself. Funny thing about funny spiders, or funny snakes, sorry. Shock serpents also do not have resistance to electricity. Sea snakes, or resistance to cold, so resistance to poison, that's what I meant. Sea serpents also do not have resistance to poison. It seems that the fancy serpents do not have resistance to poison. Anacondas either do not have it. But yeah, those are other snakes that you cannot summon. This is the one that you can summon, and it's a pretty okay one. I like it. I like it. You should give it a try if you have not given it a try ever. It has my seal of approval, funnily enough. Let's go to the next on our list, which is going to be Shadow Creatures. Oh, Shadow Creatures no longer exists. The next on our list is actually Cactus. Yeah, Shadow Creatures got removed with the Summon rework. It was always ridiculously strong, so it was a surprise to me that Shadow Creatures stayed in the game for that long. Anyway, Cactus Giant summons a warrior from a particularly prickly tribe. Foes who strike these giants in melee are in for a painful surprise. When cast at a higher power, older, more robust warriors will answer the call. So once again, the hit dice of the Cactus Giant scales with spell power, and by extension, you're gonna get dudes that have more HP. It's pretty good. It's a pretty good spell. The description of the spell doesn't explicitly say it, but it's a Cactus Giant. It's implicit that the monsters are gonna take retaliatory spine damage whenever they attack the Cactus Giant in melee. I think this spell is really good because the Cactus Giants are extremely robust. Even if you cast it with like low spell power, the Cactus Giants are still gonna have like 100 HP or so. They also like the retaliatory damage is a big deal. It is probably the bulk of the damage from the Cactus Giants. So Cactus Giant plus Guardian Golem can just kill bands of things. If you get this spell early when you're playing a summoner, it can be a huge blessing. I think this spell is really, really, really strong. Um, it is it is not a win condition in my opinion, but it is a spell that will get you very comfortably to your first win condition. Like it will carry you through the game for long enough to find like your refrigeration or your toxic radiance, ignite poison, that kind of thing that I like, or your other fancier summoning spells that I have yet to talk about. Yep. So yeah, I like this spell a lot. I don't really use it as much as I would like to, but I like it. I should try to use it more. I'm gonna keep my eyes open for the next time that I find this spell earlier on in the game and I'm playing a spellcaster because I think it's a pretty good spell. So yeah, next on our list um, we have Monstrous Menagerie. That's what we have. Monstrous Menagerie summons a powerful exotic creature to the caster's 8th. A manticore, a lindworm, or at higher power, even a sphinx. Casting the spell at higher power also increases the strength of the beasts themselves. So once again, more spell power, more hit dice. That means that the sphinxes that you're gonna be getting from these with high enough spell power are potentially gonna be even more powerful than the sphinxes you would find in the open, which means higher spell power, which means more likely for them to hex your enemies. I do not like this spell that much. I don't think the dudes that it summons are that fancy. It is a level 7 spell. Like, let's compare this level 7 spell that summons one dude and you can cast it twice. That's like a fancy thing about this. You can sustain at most 2 creatures summoned by this spell as opposed to 1. That's cool. But let's see what we get in other schools. Level 7 single school. We get refrigeration, we get orb of destruction, we get those are the only two that come to mind immediately, but those two are pretty insane. Orb of Destruction just kills something pretty much, and Refrigeration deals damage to everything in the screen. So they're different spells and they have different use cases. Something good about summons that I have not mentioned is that summons are extremely mana effective. Like you can use 20 manas worth of summons, or worth of summons, and it will go for much longer than 20 manas worth of fireballs or like any conjuration that you want to think about. Um, so yeah, there is value in having mid to high level summon for pretty much every character just because of that. It's like what you cast when you're low on mana and you have low amounts of enemies to deal with, for it to just clean up the fight. So yeah, Monstrous Menagerie could reasonably be used for that purpose, but I think there's better spells for that. I do not like this one, but I guess I haven't really given it a fair try. Once again, next time I get it on a character that wants to use it, I'll probably pay a bit more attention to it and like use it and see how it goes. But as a whole, summons, allies, not a fan of that. So next on our list we have Summon Hydra. We have that. Summon Hydra summons a many-headed Hydra to fight alongside the caster for a short time. Spell power determines the number of heads. This spell is very reminiscent of Orb of Destruction. It fights for a short time and it deals ridiculous amounts of damage because it's an Hydra. Hydras are insane allies to have. They are extremely dangerous to the monsters because the monsters are not gonna have 200 HP and 40 armor class like you, the player, do. The monsters are gonna have like on like a robust monster, you're gonna see like 80 or so HP and like 20 or so armor class and like an 11-headed Hydra, for example, and you can get an 11-headed Hydra out of this. You can get even higher counts of heads from casting this spell. Yeah, that's just gonna tear through such a monster. Do not expect it to last for much longer after that, however, because that's just not how the spell works. Mm, so yeah, Summon Hydra is okay, but if I was going to use a spell like that, I feel like I would use Orb of Destruction, or like I would just go for a different character build that would not lead me towards using Summon Hydra in the first place. I guess it's a nice like complement to Menagerie. Like I can imagine myself summoning a couple of Hydras in a row and then just finishing off with two summons from Monstrous Menagerie, hoping to get two Sphinxes to clean up. That doesn't sound so bad. I might have to give it a try. Yeah. Something nice that I have to say about summons is that it actually has. Sorry for that. Is that it actually has spells to progress through the school. It's not like Ice Magic where you have the starting book and then you have like Freezing Cloud and then you have Refrigeration. Like I feel like there's a huge gap between the level 3s and the level 7s that Freezing Cloud doesn't quite fill. So yeah, I um, I think that's a pretty good thing, and I think that more schools should have that. It's a shame that only Summons has it, or pretty much only Summons has it. But yeah, that's Menagerie. Next on our list um, we have Spellforged Servitor. We're getting into the really really good spells actually. Spellforged Servitor summons an X-Lab Planar Elemental and binds it to a durable shell forged from the caster's own magic. The Servitor is capable of unleashing some of the destructive spells known to its creator, though the strongest and most volatile of magics cannot be imbued in this fashion. The strength of the Servitor increases with spell power. You can sustain at most one creature summoned by this spell. This spell is incredible, but you need to have Iron Shot or Crystal Spear. If you don't have Iron Shot or Crystal Spear, Servitor is not really worth it. So if you're gonna get that, I would recommend you to get Iron Shot or Crystal Spear. It turns out that if you spend 7 mana on a turret that actually walks, unlike the Lightning Spire, and just like shoots Crystal Spears and Iron Shots at whatever you're fighting, that's extremely valuable. Following the theme of the summoning spells being extremely mana valuable, this is a perfect example of that. The Servitor will cast the spell the highest level conjuration that you have that is below 50% chance to fail. So if you want to cast Crystal Spear, or if you want the Servitor to cast Crystal Spear, you should get the Crystal Spear to 49% at the very least. It can be okay if you don't want to cast it, or it can be okay if you plan to cast it much later into the game. But as long as you get it to 49% chance to miscast, the Servitor will copy it. So like you can just cast the Servitor and just see how it Crystal Spears everything. It's insanely strong. I think it is a really, really good spell. I only recently used it. I think it was like a month ago that I used Servitor with Crystal Spear, and yeah, it completely has my seal of approval. It's a really powerful combination of things to do. You can also do it with Iron Shot, and it's pretty much the same, but with slightly more range and slightly less damage and accuracy. Same still applies. It's still really, really good. Especially because it's only 7 mana. It hurts much less if your Servitor misses 2 Iron Shots than if you miss 2 Iron Shots. Because if your Servitor misses 2 Iron Shots, you're still getting a lot of value out of the ones that do land from the Servitor. If you miss 2 Iron Shots, that's 12 mana that did nothing. So yeah, this spell is incredible. It also copies Ball Lightning, so be very careful to use this if your best spell is Ball Lightning, because this guy will not hesitate to spam Ball Lightning. It is crazy how much of that this guy does. So keep that in mind. Next on our list we have Malign Gateway. Malign Gateway tears a gash in reality, creating a self-sustained but temporary portal to an unknown tainted otherworld. It requires open space to succeed. After a short time, a powerful cloth tentacle will reach through the portal, remaining bound to the caster's will for a duration depending on power. With the portal's expiry, the tentacle will be severed and turn on the caster. The duration of the portal increases with spell power. This spell is insane. In case you don't know, I don't normally do this, but I guess I should have done it a bit more when reviewing the summons. For some of them, it's not really relevant to look up the monster, but here's what what an Eldritch Tentacle looks like. An immense squamous appendage of some unseen creature, dripping with ichor and tipped with a single terrible-looking claw. It has around 120 HP, decent armor class, no evasion, immune to hexes, infinite willpower, immune to electricity, poison, fire, cold, acid, negative energy, and torment. Noticeably not immune to drowning, so I guess you can hit it with drowning damage, but who cares? It can fly, it can see invisible, it is fast, it's giant, it can claw for 40 to apply chaos melee. Cause unpredictable effects means chaos melee. Tentacle slap for 30 for chaos melee. Now, this spell is beast. This spell is really strong. Immune to all of these things means that there's a very large amount of monsters in the game that just cannot do anything against an Eldritch Tentacle. And the Eldritch Tentacle's damage output is also off the charts, so it can very easily kill orbs of fire. In fact, Eldritch Tentacles are the perfect Orb of Fire Slayer, because the Orb of Fire literally cannot do anything to the tentacle, and the tentacle just destroys the Orbs of Fire really, really fast. It is obscene how strong it is for that purpose. The monster, the Eldritch Tentacle, does struggle against some very specific monsters. Like, for example, Hell Sentinels are a bad matchup because they have Damnation and they have Iron Shot as well. So yeah, those spells are really bad for the Eldritch Tentacle. It's something good to keep in mind if you ever encounter one of these guys. If you have Stone Arrow or Iron Shot or Crystal Spear, those are great for dealing with the Tentacle. And also some of the very few spells that can actually harm the Tentacle. So yeah, obviously a bit of a bad matchup against Draconian Annihilators as well, because those ones also have Crystal Spear. Liches theoretically could be bad, but since they come alone, the Liches, since they come alone, it's easier for you to tank a bit for the Tentacle, and the Tentacle just destroys the Liches. Do be wary when using this because it is uncommon. It is rather uncommon, but it will eventually happen if you use this for a long period of time in your playthrough. The monsters can get berserked or hasted or polymorphed into nastier monsters whenever you are using this spell, because the Eldritch Tentacle is hitting the monsters with Chaos Melee. So keep that in mind. Do not position yourself too close to the monsters that the Tentacle is hitting. And if you see a Berserk monster, probably try to disengage from the fight, because most Berserk monsters can actually kill the Tentacle and can also kill you, of course. So yeah, something to keep in mind. Other than that, this spell is fantastic. It absolutely has my seal of approval. It is very easy to use. It is like a zone control spell more than just like a normal summon, because you place the gate in a spot. It's like actually random when it generates, but whatever it generates, you just walk over there and the monsters will follow you, and then they will get killed by the tentacle. So yeah, it's a really strong spell. Absolutely has my seal of approval once again. Next on the list we have Haunt. Haunt calls wraiths and ghosts to haunt the caster's target. They will only attack the creature they're haunting and will dissipate quickly once their target dies. The number of specters summoned increases with spell power. Necromancy Summoning, level 7. Been playing a fair amount with these, with the Haunt spell, now that the Necromancy rework went online. You should also look forward to the Necromancy overview. It's gonna come sooner rather than later. You can sustain at most 8 creatures summoned by this spell. You know why you can summon at most 8 creatures? Because every cast of Haunt places between like 4 and 6, 7 wraiths It's actually insane how many dudes it summons, and it summons them surrounding the thing. So this spell is much more reminiscent of the spells that I like to use in this game. It's not very valuable mana-wise, like you don't get a lot of value, but it does let you point at a monster, say funny words, and then the monster explodes. Or in this case, gets mauled to death by wraiths and ghosts. Um, this spell can summon wraiths, freezing wraiths, shadow wraiths, and there was another one. Phantasmal Warriors. It can summon those four monsters, but it summons a very large amount per cast. So it's a pretty good spell, once again, to deal with Orbs of Fire. In this case, the dudes that you summoned are actually super weak to fire, especially the Freezing Wraith. But you summon so many of them that it's likely that even if they don't kill the Orb of Fire, even if somehow the Orb of Fire gets rid of all of them with like a very well placed Fireball or something, it's still most likely gonna be slow. So if it gets slowed, you can just do it again or something. Um, so no, something important to mention: haunt rates can slow monsters that are immune to hexes otherwise. So it's pretty much one of the very few ways to slow some monsters like leeches and orbs of fire and most demons, most high level demons that is. It's a really good spell. I definitely have the highest of praise for this spell. You know what my issue is, and the reason why I don't use it as much as I would otherwise? It's a level 7 dual school spell in two spell schools that I barely use. Summoning and Necromancy. If it was not like this, if it was in different schools, I would use it as much as I use Refrigeration. Refrigeration is in a godly school and it's a single school spell, so yeah, that's the one difference. The one reason why I use Refrigeration way more than I use Haunt. Even though the two of them are same level. But yeah, if you have never given Haunt a try, I cannot recommend it anymore than I already do. It is fantastic. Give it a try. It's really good. It's a hard carry spell. You might you might do well to complement it with something else like Toxic Radiance. Ignite Poison sounds pretty okay to me to thin those bands, because at the end of the day it's pretty much a single target spell, but it's a pretty strong spell. So yeah. Anyway, next on our list we have Summon Horrible Things. Summon Horrible Things opens a gate to the abyss and calls through one or more hideous abominations from that dreadful place. The opening of the gate may drain a portion of the caster's intellect. The number of abominations summoned increases with spell power. You can sustain at most 8 creatures summoned by this spell. As you can see, it's a level 8 single school spell. This one is also a hard carry spell. Whenever you cast it, you're gonna get a lot of small abominations, or large abominations, or tentacled monstrosities. Those are the things that this spell summons. It's like Summon Butterfly, but the thing is that the butterflies actually can kill things pretty hard whenever you're casting this spell. But otherwise, they have very similar applications, funnily enough. You may notice that I didn't really mention summon butterflies here. That's because the spell no longer exists. It was way too strong for what it was. It was a pure utility spell. It was optimal to get it on pretty much every character, so that's why it got removed. But Summon Horrible Things is not optimal to get on every character, and it is very strong, so that's why it's still in the game. This spell is fantastic. You should give it a try one of these days. It's like you summon this spell, and it's like, oh yeah, I'm just gonna have a band. Now I have a band of dudes to help me fight against that band of Draconians, or that band of Vault guards and wardens, and like humans from the vaults, for example, or trolls from the depths, or whatever you want. It is really strong. The tentacled monstrosity is the strongest thing that you can get from this spell, and that also has a pretty okay matchup against Orbs of Fire, because it is relatively highly resistant to fire. It has one pip of resistance and pretty okay HP and armor class for a monster. Most monsters don't have the levels of HP and armor class that Tentacle Monstrosity has. Um, so yeah, it's just a really strong spell. I recommend it a lot. It's not as much of my favorite as Haunt is, or Malign Gateway, or even something like Cactus Giant. I like those spells a lot, but it is pretty okay too. If you're going for summons, this should probably be your capstone summon for many situations. There is one higher level spell than this, like the final level from the summoning school, but I don't know. I think it doesn't have as much of an impact as summon horrible things, and it is also an extremely expensive spell to use. I think it might not be a terrible idea to just talk about it right now. So let's see. Let's see what we got here. Final level or final spell in the summonings school. Um, it's Dragon's Call, which issues a powerful call to a draconic realm, beckoning forth dragon after dragon to engage the summoner's enemies. This spell is taxing to maintain, and each new dragon which answers the call will further drain the summoner's magical reserves. After the call ends, it cannot be issued again for a short time. The duration of the call and the species of dragon call depend on spell power. It doesn't say how many dudes it can summon, but yeah, the dragons don't last for very long. And while you are in combat, you will constantly summon dudes. This can be extremely dangerous when you're playing something like Jin. I remember actually like one of my first times casting Dragon's Call was while I was playing a Jin, and I just cast it. And then I was like, whoa, my HP is going down very low. It's actually really scary to have like 50 HP or so when you are in SOT. But anyway, the spell is pretty strong, but you kinda are committing your entire mana bar to casting this one spell. This would work really well if you could also do other things while your mana gets completely depleted by the ridiculous amounts of dragons that this thing summons. But usually, characters that get a level 9 spell don't have much else going on for them in terms of like wearing armor and pressing tab. Um, Even something like using portal projectile costs mana, so you might not be able to even support the dragons with like ranged attacks. Um, but you may also not need to do that anyway because the dragons are really strong. So that's it's a really good spell, but it's not my favorite spell. When it comes to the level 9s, I think my favorite has to be something like Polar Vortex or Firestorm. And then I also like Shatter a lot. Most of my extended characters get those three spells: Polar Vortex, Shatter, and Firestorm, alongside Refrigeration and Ignition probably as well. Those spells are just really good, and like compared what those spells do, the level 9s, with what this does. This summons a ton of dragons. The amount of things that can survive the amount of dragons that this thing summons in a 3-rune game is like close to zero. In a 3-rune game. In extended, it might get complicated. There's many things with Torment. There's many things with Damnation. The dragons, I don't know. I wouldn't rely on them. I have never used it in extended because I don't think it's nearly as good as other level 9 spells. So yeah, but for a 3-rune game, I would say that this is one of the strongest level 9 spells. I would take this over Firestorm for doing SOT, for example. Um, so yeah, I think if you're going for summons and only summons or mainly summons, this is a good level 9 spell to have. Otherwise, if you have summons as a complementary thing, you have Spellforged Servitor, you have Haunt, you have Monstrous Menagerie, you have some horrible things, some pretty good level 7 summons. Actually, some pretty fantastic high quality ones. You don't really have to go all the way up to the level 8s and the level 9s to get the most value out of the summon school. But if you want to, you can do it, and that's also really cool. I wish other schools had the amount of versatility that the summon school has. So yeah, that was summons. I think I got everything. Um, if you enjoyed what you saw, you should consider following on my Twitch and subscribing on YouTube if you haven't already. And if you really liked it for some reason, first of all, thank you. Second of all, my Patreon link is down below. You can also choose to subscribe on my Twitch. If you have Amazon Prime, you can use the Twitch Prime. It's free to you if you have Amazon Prime, of course, and it is extremely helpful to me. It definitely helps me continue to do this. And I hope that you enjoyed this. I hope that you had fun listening to me talk about a school that I'm not that much a fan of, but it does have some pretty fantastic spells. My issue with those spells is that everything that comes before them is super lame and super weak compared to other schools. So I never like train for these things to begin with. But that may be like a me thing. Maybe you think that summoning things is like the coolest thing in the game and you hate explosions for some reason. In that case, you would probably like summons a lot in this game. So yeah, I would say that the summon system is pretty nice for someone that likes summons, that is. So yeah, I don't have much else to say. I hope that you enjoyed this, and I hope that you have a nice rest of your day. And I hope that you play Crawl or maybe even visit my stream sometime. Have a nice rest of your day, or night, or whatever. See you around.